Welcome to Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready, we're about to live in your head rent-free. Greetings, Otterites. Welcome to episode 149. I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis.
So, by way of a little explanation here, Otterites, you may hear Francis cough occasionally. I know that's a touch unprofessional, but unavoidable. He was trapped in a Tijuana prison for a couple of weeks, and Robert and I had to...
We road tripped.
Got
his butt out of that jail.
Thank God for that.
Swilling bourbon the whole way.
That's right. Pulled the bars right off with the back of the truck, just like in the movies.
That's right.
So he's had a wee bout,
yes,
as Mr. Scott would put it, but he's returning to the pink. But there will be in the occasional cough, and please forgive us.
Yeah.
Yes, pneumonia has a tendency to hang around a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we're still young and virile. Just let us lay that right out, all three of us. Yes. Make sure we ain't old. No.
But you'll always be the oldest.
Well, yes, that's true. Yes, and the wisest, the strongest, the handsomest. Come on, we can keep going.
But we won't. But we stopped.
The baldest.
Not really. I mean, we all have our hair, mostly. I mean, in fairness.
Compared to me, you guys are.
Well, that's correct.
Bald.
You are the most follically endowed. Shall I use that word? I don't like using that word, but I will, I guess.
Well, we can just drop the follically part since you don't like that word.
Yes, I knew this was coming. He sets them up. He hits them all out.
That's why I'm the hammer.
That's right.
So, what are we doing this week?
Yes, the Templars. This
Knights
episode
Templar,
is the Templars.
that's right.
Thank you, Robert. I meant to do that. So, as a follow-on, our last history episode, Otterites, was on the Crusades. And, of course, you can't really discuss, especially the Crusades in the Holy Land, without an exploration of the famous Knights Templars, or the Knights of Solomon's Temple.
Yes, various names.
So,
depending how you want to look at it.
The common term that is known
is the Templars. Yes, and it's a fascinating history, and we're going to dig into that.
And it's nothing like the modern portrayals. It really is not. I mean, there's some truth to some of that, but it's not.
Right, yeah, I mean, the History Channel series, Nightfall, 2 seasons, was excellent. It was fun, but it was really not. It was, well, I don't want to say, it was accurate in a few places, but it was not accurate in so much was fictionalized.
Right.
And we'll talk about that.
And that's a danger of a lot of what the History Channel and similar channels, they are not the straight academic approach that you would expect from something called the History Channel.
It's for entertainment, of course.
Yeah, it is all entertainment.
Yeah.
Before we get started with that, though, we've got a couple of items of business to take care of.
Yes, thank you, Robert. I appreciate that, man.
Here to help.
So, Otterites, since we gathered last, we've had some ups and some downs.
Yep.
If you've been following us and keeping up with snakesandotters.com, you'll see our posts. Just as we were posting about the awesome dinner parties, who we would invite, came the news that my number one hero, and certainly a person who influences this endeavor strongly,
Greatly. Yes.
P.J. O'Rourke, died at age 74. I believe likely of lung cancer.
Yeah, I think that's what...
He had smoked, and so...
Very sad day. We did attempt to get him on the show, but by the time we initiated... I mean, we probably had little chance to get him on the show anyway.
Well, that's right. But
I mean, there's no telling what his appearance fee would have been.
Exactly. I don't think we can afford that much bourbon.
But he most likely was ill.
Right.
By the time we had approached him, and just it just wasn't kind of out there,
Right.
His publisher had really kind of kept it private. So, condolences to his family, his wife Tina, and his 3 children. Who, for him being 74, his children they're the same age as some of our children.
Right, yeah, they're much younger, yeah.
They're born
Talk
in
about
the
Mira.
90s. Yeah, so he married late, had 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. He calls them Moppet. I can't remember what he would call them in the books. Anyway, he had pet names for them in the books. So just condolences to his family, and
we've lost a great one.
Yeah,
that's right. A towering intellect.
Yes,
very much so.
Yes.
And I would hope that they know how much he meant to his readers, to his audience.
Oh yes, I think that's
not just to people that maybe they came across with him, people like Cato Foundation or Institute or whatever it's called, or Heritage Foundation, and people that he interacted with, but just regular readers out in the world. His work gives me the bravery to do this.
Right. Yeah, he definitely was a great. He's always a great read, great wit, great intellect. He will definitely be missed.
Just nobody else like him.
No.
The days of gonzo journalism are pretty much gone with PJ's exit from the scene.
Indeed.
But he beat his estimated checkout date by 2 years.
Yeah, so that's not bad.
Not bad. So, on the upside, though... Yes, this was so exciting.
My gosh.
This took place when I was in the Tijuana jail, mind you.
Yes. We did delay our rescue so that we could go to the game.
So, Otterites, if you've listened, all three of us are graduates of, at the time, Bellarmine College, now known as Bellarmine University, who...
Swords up, go Knights.
Indeed. Swords up. A couple of years ago, decided to move up from Division 2 college athletics to Division 1 college athletics.
Which is no small jump.
Especially for a very small school.
Yes.
There are other small schools in Division 1 that's similar size. Again, private schools of that size.
Yep.
About 3,000, a little under 3,000 undergrads, with graduate students a little over 3, I think. But they jumped up, and according to NCAA antiquated bureaucracy rules, and of course, once you have a rule and you're a bureaucracy,
you can't break it.
You can't change it.
Although they have made exceptions.
Well, they refuse to for Bellarmine, but because of their reclassification, you have to wait 4 years before you can participate in the championship tournaments.
Right, which is ludicrous when you jump up. Nobody jumps up because it's going to be easier.
Yes. I mean, I get that, right. If you're moving down, you want to reclassify down because you stink at Division 1. Sure, you should have to wait.
I think 4 years is a little much anyways, but yes.
They jumped into the Atlantic Sun Conference.
Yes.
Had some success last year. This year, even more success. They...
yes, last year, though, let's really remember this.
Yes.
Last year, everybody, all the experts, predicted them to finish dead last in their conference. They came in second in their division of the conference and then went deep into the tournament last year.
Yes, they did.
Yes.
So this is the Atlantic Sun is the same conference as Liberty University in Lynchville, Virginia.
Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, Eastern Kentucky. A couple of other small schools.
Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville, Alabama.
Yeah, Jacksonville.
North Alabama.
Yes.
In there.
So Jacksonville
Lipscomb.
State. Yeah.
Famous University, Lipscomb.
So, but Austin P University is going to join soon.
Oh.
So we'll get to say, we get to hear everybody yell, "Let's go P."
Yeah.
As their famous cheer.
Yeah, toilet humor is always funny, right?
But anyways, so
amazingly, they won their first game of the tournament, had to go on the road to Liberty. Upset Liberty.
Yes, on the road.
On the road.
Who was going for a four-peat. They were looking for their fourth straight conference championship.
And bid to the big time.
Yes.
So that set up that Bellarmine was the home team for the ASUN championship game, hosting the Jacksonville State Dolphins.
Yes, the Dolphins.
And they won. They beat the Dolphins. And
in a thrilling game.
It was an amazing game. The Jacksonville State Dolphins are a more physical team, taller team.
There's not as huge a difference between them and some of the other teams that Bellarmine has played this year, but Jacksonville plays them pretty good. And
a little bit more size, a little bit more beef in the middle.
Yes.
But Bellarmine shot the lights out essentially.
Oh my gosh!
Crazy C.J. Fleming off balance, weird shots, all net.
Yeah, and all night. It wasn't just one.
And Dylan Penn played some amazing in the paint basketball.
Even hit a 3. Dylan is not known for his 3-point shot.
He opened the game kind of with he was the first 3 they hit.
Yeah. So and they started off. It looked a little worrisome because the first couple of minutes, it was 4-0, but there's some back and forth. They were a little cold for the first couple of possessions, and all of a sudden they hit 3 straight 3-pointers. It's 9-4, and they never looked back. They never lost the lead.
Yeah, never looked back from that point.
Yeah,
and like I said, just played some really fun,
sound basketball
and moved
fundamentals,
the ball movement. So congratulations to the Knights and Scotty Davenport. We were thrilled at the game. It was so much fun. And as I posted, the great thing about a basketball game in this town or in the whole state, people that go to games know the game.
Yes.
They know the game. And let me tell you something. I walked in, lucked out, and got the seat next to Robert. The first thing Robert says was, I hope you brought your blood pressure medicine because these refs are awful.
Yeah, so I think I've mentioned before, certainly I've mentioned on the blog, for second daughter and I are season ticket holders for the Knights. So we've been to she went to all but one. It was a game that got rescheduled because of weather for an afternoon instead of an evening. Neither one of us could get off work. I missed another one because I was sick. And then we also went to the last game of the season at EKU. So it kind of made up for that one, which unfortunately they lost. But anyways, so we're season ticket holders. We've been to all these games, and fantastic. So we've gotten to know a lot of the reffing crews. And the particular crew that they had for this tournament championship game is the worst crew that we have seen. They are consistently the worst. They miss so many calls. So many bad calls against Bellarmine. It goes a bit both ways. Obviously, we're going to pick up more on the Bellarmine ones. I try and recognize where they miss them on both.
Yeah.
But, oh my gosh, they are so egregiously bad. I mean, it's like they have money on the other team.
Yeah, Robert joked that they must have money on the other team, and I just responded, well, no, maybe they're just Protestants.
Yeah, so that was actually a better joke than mine, yeah.
Nice one, Antonio. Yes. Liked it, yeah.
But, so, I thought the worst call was the 5-point swing.
Oh my gosh, that was bad.
I mean, a foul under the basket that didn't exist, and they let the 3-point shot that happened after the foul on the perimeter stand. So the 3 counted, and Jacksonville State got the ball back and sank that basket for 5 points.
Yep.
Like, oh!
That almost was a total game changer.
Yeah.
I mean, but luckily, Bellarmine was way ahead at that point, so it wasn't...
It cut the lead
but it did
down
cut the lead.
to about 4 or 5, I think.
Yeah, it got it down there, yeah.
Yeah. But they persevered, and again, Dylan Penn played on the interior most of the game, and it just...
He can drive to the basket.
And just got shots to fall over bigger competition. It was amazing. And like I said, the crowd was just so into it. Just a great 6,000 some people, 6,200 people.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but you got to remember, when they were playing at Knights Hall, which is on Bellarmine's campus, that's like 2,500 seats.
Yeah.
So they had 2.5 times the number of people that they could have had in prior years.
It was great. The community really came out for them. And if you follow sports journalism and sports broadcasting, the oddity, the 25 that hadn't happened in 25-year thing of a team reclassifying and winning a conference tournament, which should have put them in the NCAA tournament, made the news for the whole week. I mean,
right, they got a huge amount of press.
Yeah, tremendous press, tremendous name recognition out there. Now everybody's going to know, oh, Bellarmine, that's the team the NCAA screwed.
Yep.
So,
well put, sir.
Awesome.
And 4 of the 5 starters graduate this year, unless one or two of them are going to come back as a grad student, like CJ did. CJ Fleming.
Yes.
Second daughter had a class with CJ when she was a senior or a junior, I forget which. But anyways,
well, the NCAA is granted like blanket another year of eligibility because of COVID. So I know some kids are hanging around longer than they normally would have.
Right. So
in every school,
but with 4 of them, because 4 of them were seniors, one of them was a freshman, which I did not realize because he's a big kid. But all this press comes at the best time because it's going to up their ability to recruit and get transfers. That's and
right.
if you've ever Google Bellarmine Knights and passing on, or actually go to YouTube and search it there. There's a video analyzing how they pass the ball. It's phenomenal.
Yes.
Now, they can't do it quite as much at the Division 1 level as I've seen them do against Division 2 because their opponents are just bigger and faster.
Oh, yeah.
But they can still, oh my gosh, they're the best passing team you will see.
Yeah, it's like a ballet of ball movement. They
really is.
do. And that's tribute to Scotty Davenport.
I was going to say the same thing. It's tribute to Scotty, who recognizes the talent that he has and uses it appropriately.
Yes.
That's truly
well, and he recruits as well
that's
for
right.
his
He knows
style.
what he needs. That's right.
You know?
He knows who fits him.
Exactly. His name keeps coming up for U of L's job whenever there's an opening, which there have been several in the last few years.
Yeah.
But he's never going to leave Bellarmine.
No.
I mean, the only thing that you could possibly do to entice him away would be all the money that a school like U of L could throw at him. Because it's more than
but
what Bellarmine
he just enjoys himself so much.
He does.
He's 66. He doesn't want to mess with all that stuff. But that you mentioned U of L, I also want to say congratulations to Kenny Payne for getting named basketball coach at the University of Louisville.
That's a big win for the Cards.
It's a big win for the city and everything.
Yeah.
I got to see just a tiny bit of his press conference, not the whole thing, but about half of his remarks. Is very emotional. It's very wonderful. Who knows if he really can win? He doesn't have any head coaching experience, so you don't know right now what his staff's going to look like or what defense or offense he's going to play. Can he X and O's? Is he going to be able to draw up plays coming out of timeouts? All those things that mark the outstanding coaches. But he cares about the kids. He's going to do right by the university, do things the right way, no more scandals. He's going to recruit incredible kids. The last 10 years.
Yeah, his first year may not be so great because it's too late to recruit.
Yeah, well, and there's still a lot hanging over the school.
You're in rebuilding mode.
Yeah,
that's just a different
season
thing.
After.
Yes, he'll have some of his guys.
That's where you're going to see the impact.
He'll hit the transfer portal. He'll get some guys come in that want to play for him. And he has a reputation of developing players to play at the highest levels of the NBA. Karl Anthony Towns, Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis. These are all people that work with Kenny Payne and are all-star level players in the NBA. He works with players in that manner. And again, his remarks were super emotional and really the right tone. And it was a great hire. And congrats to U of L. And that's from a Cat in the Night fan. So
Condolences.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's another down. Us screaming at the television. But anyway, we're several
to paraphrase you, I love it when SEC team loses in the first round.
Yes, Robert's bagging on me because I love to watch the Big Ten lose.
And of course, being from Michigan, granted, I don't care about most of the Big Ten except Michigan State.
Well, you want to see Ohio State lose.
Well, yeah, obvious. That goes
without saying. Don't forget that.
That's like the Roads.
I'm surprised he doesn't have Ohio State on his toilet paper, so he can keep on a wiping, right?
My toilet paper and my butt are too good for Ohio State.
Oh, very good.
You don't want to put the Buckeyes on a roll?
No, definitely not. This is downhill.
All right. Well, that's
so. Actually, this is a history episode, not a sports episode.
Yeah. So on to the Templars.
Yes.
So this one might go over just a bit. Thanks for indulging us, Otterites.
Yes.
The Templars. So, it sounded like a good idea at the time. It's kind of one of those things. Hey,
what could go wrong?
You've got this new kingdom that you've established in the Holy Land. Jerusalem is in the hands of the Christian Europeans. But the countryside is still pretty dangerous.
It is.
We need somebody to watch out for these pilgrims because by the time you get dropped off at the coast and make your way to Jerusalem, it's just kind of ungoverned.
Right. Well, and you have to remember, protecting the pilgrims was a good deal of what went into the thinking behind the Crusades to begin with.
That's
it wasn't
correct.
entirely it, but that it was also free the Holy Land. But we can't get our people in there.
Yeah.
They're abused and all these other things.
That was the real reason that it all started, was because if the Muslim controllers had been much more open to free trade, it probably never would have gotten to that point.
And if they'd been able to control more of the area.
That is correct, because they were divided. They
were
didn't have
divided,
the ability,
and just governance wasn't their thing. So there's these areas that are just kind of wild and ungoverned.
Well, to quote James T. Kirk, conquest is easy, control is not.
And so
if you were wondering where Star Trek is going to come in, you open that one up for me.
And the number of pilgrims, of course, ticks up once Jerusalem is established as a Christian kingdom.
Yeah, and relatively safe once you got there.
Once you got there.
And that's where the whole is we've got to be able to protect these people. And a lot of these, I want to say thugs, perhaps, but all those who fought in the Crusades kind of liked it there. It's one thing Ridley Scott got right in Kingdom of Heaven is, this is a place for opportunity where you can kind of make your own way. There's lots of land. There's lots of opportunity.
Who you were in Europe is immaterial.
Right.
It's what can you accomplish here.
Well, you had to have a little. Second sons, disenfranchised folks, a lot of them were able to make their way there because there's only so much that is available in Europe. There's scarcity there. There's abundance in the Holy Land. So all these guys are saying, well, now what do we do? I mean, I want to go out and, swing my sword and do all sorts of nasty business. Oh, I know. We'll make it an order.
Yeah. So in 1119, let's see, I'll get this name right.
Poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon.
Yes, they are established in the Holy Land with headquarters on the Temple Mount. So, Templars. Mm-hmm. And that's the idea, the original idea of a military-style religious order.
Right. Not that dissimilar from a monastic order. It's just the focus was different.
Right.
I mean, it was really set up the same way. The governance was the same. You had to get permission from the Pope to establish an order. You still have to do that today. And it's not easily given. The Dominicans did it. The Franciscans did it. The Cistercians, all those monastic orders.
Right, and let's remember, when we talk about order, we do not mean an order in the same way because these are not priests and brothers.
Some of them were.
Yes, but I mean...
Yeah, that's not their design.
The Dominican is a religious
order first, and of which many are priests.
Right. But either way, they're either a brother or a priest, whereas these are going to be military. Oh, yeah, and there are some priests.
Well, yeah, that's correct. They are soldiers.
Yes, they're soldiers primarily.
And many would become priests, too.
And the genius of this is, then, that, like you say, you're taking these bullies, basically thugs, and you're giving them now a purpose to reform their lives.
Right, and a higher purpose, too. It's not just it's not a base purpose, in the sense that, it's not for glory. I mean, it's not personal glory.
Right.
It's glory of God.
Which is exactly right.
Higher
which
order.
is, it's meant to be a good purpose. The Templars get a lot of bad rap from the time of their, when they are, I want to say, suppressed.
Yes.
From the time forward. That's mostly mythology and all that stuff. But their original purpose was profound. And the only thing they were guilty of was being damn good at their job.
Yes. Yeah. So the
and they were huge, too.
Absolutely. In a very short time.
Yes. The idea becomes, okay, we're going to found this order. We're going to stay in the Holy Land. We're going to militarily protect the pilgrims as they disembark and make their way to Jerusalem.
And provide for them.
Yeah.
That's where all of a sudden you have things like the Templars are running hotels, hospitals, accommodations, banking, and that's where they do a lot of that.
Some of they're really one of the first modern institutions we would consider a bank. Also, multinational corporation.
Yes.
When you consider all the things that they were doing, it's astonishing in 200 years what they did. And you think, well, 200 years, that's nothing. 200 years when there's no mass communications, no mass travel. There's no technology that's beyond, horsepower.
Right. And these guys are individuals who probably would have been enemies in Europe because they are all different nationalities, even though the term nationality is not quite applied at this point here. But you've got Franks, you've got Germans, you've got Angles, English,
yes.
Northern
They're
French.
from all over.
They're from all over.
Western Europe,
Italians,
primarily. Yeah.
Venetians. You've got many came from Constantinople and the Eastern Empire. It was some of it was. It's kind of a tribute to almost a proto-capitalistic way of
Yes.
working. Because you can be something here.
Right.
That's
So
the intention.
as it evolves, of course, at this time, your wealth isn't electronic. Your wealth is movable.
Yes.
It's
Species.
hard currency.
Well, if it's not your plan, yes.
Yes. So what would happen is, as they grew and established locations back in Europe,
Right.
it becomes multinational because they are established in Europe. They're assisting and becoming a part of the fabric of these nation states. What you would do is, hey, Templars, I trust you. Here's my money that I want to be able to get back once I get to the Holy Land. You hold on to it.
Yeah.
They would write you what would become a check,
Yeah.
and you would take that when you arrived at the Holy
That's
Land.
right,
Which
because
you could cash it in.
That's right, because it's worthless to anybody but you. It can't be stolen.
Right, and this is very similar to what banking, how it started here in this country, I presume, in Europe as well. When you look at what was going on before we had paper money in the U.S., that's exactly how things worked here.
That's right.
In the 1800s.
You're drawing off species deposited somewhere else. That's the rise of banking. We could probably do a whole episode on that if we were. I'm not sure. We're experts on a lot of stuff. That's not quite our wheelhouse.
We might have to have a special guest.
Might have a special guest
You
on
want to
that.
start talking economics there?
Yeah, but that's how it happens.
Yeah.
And it's in Italy and it's in Constantinople, Venice in particular, where all this stuff rises right around this time, thanks to the Templars.
Yeah.
And they, since they are all over Europe, they gain a huge amount of influence in a lot of places.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons why they get in trouble with Philip in France.
Yes.
That's right.
So what would eventually happen is not only would you deposit your money before departing for the Holy Land, lots of people began then granting in their wills or as gifts to the order
Yes.
land. And land at that time, land was your income.
That's right.
Yes, it was.
What you made from the tenant farmers of that land then became your income, your wealth.
It's still known as real property today.
Yes.
Land is, and that's exactly what
And
it
so
was.
that grew. So they not only had all this money on deposit from other people, they had their own incomes, and then they began loaning money to the kings of Europe.
Which
Right.
which ultimately is what kind of gets everything messed up because
And that's a dicey proposition because usually you're loaning it so they can go to war.
that's exactly it. That's right.
Yes.
In
Yes.
other words,
And the idea being, once they win, supposedly there should be enough stuff to strip out of the place you conquered to come home and pay the Templars back.
Yeah, assuming you win.
Yes.
Templars are supposed to be neutral to all
Right.
this, but ultimately, because they got so much money,
This
that's
is
where it gets dicey.
And,
they're powerful.
the Knights Templar. Obviously, when they get to this point, the whole poor fellow knights thing, they are not poor.
No,
they become very rich. But
some of the greatest talent in Europe went to the
Yeah,
Templars.
yeah.
That's how
But
they did this.
one of the interesting things about this is a very focused and early example of what happens to the church, especially in the Renaissance. So, during the Middle Ages, the church takes over the middle of Italy, north and south of Rome. Partially that's because they're the only organization left once Rome falls. And so, that's kind of a natural thing for them to step into that. And so when they become a secular power, oddly enough, that's when things, that causes them far more problems. Mm-hmm. And it's when the church has shed its secular power by 1870, when Italy becomes a true nation state once again, that the church's influence grew. And you see the same kind of thing. Once the Knights Templar get all of this secular power, problems start.
Right. They lost their way from their founding.
Right. Well, yeah.
You could say that, even though it was almost inevitable. In order to do what they did, they had to do how they did it.
And again, keep in mind, yes, they were actually very good at what they did. They were good soldiers.
Yes.
They were shock troops, mounted horsemen. Now, each order, the number of soldiers was relatively small.
Yes.
They had basically a giant support staff.
Yeah.
That's who handled all all of this money and banking under the direction of the. It wasn't
the Grandmaster is the man. Which I mean, that even that terminology now bears a negative connotation. Just the words.
Yeah.
But that's where it comes from, and that's the succeeding generations kind of poo-pooing the Templars and still keeping that prejudice alive even today. You hear that word Grandmaster, unless you're talking about chess, it's got a negative connotation. But he was the leader of them, and it's no different than the head of any order.
Right.
That's what he was. That's what he was, because it was so large, though, and covered so much territory. That's why that particular title was necessary, because it stepped aside.
And Pope was already taken.
Well, yeah, Pope. That's correct. Because ultimately, he reported only to the Pope. The
that was a very important part of this.
Extremely important.
Is that at one point, the Pope gives them this sort of carte blanche to cross borders,
right,
and not pay taxes. And so that really gave them the ability to be anywhere and everywhere without a lot of interference from local government.
Right. Which is ultimately one of those critical pieces of information, because in many respects these are the Pope's guys.
Well, and even though it was all Christendom, there wasn't Catholics and Protestants at this point. You have to remember, though, kings were divine right, absolute rule kings.
That's right.
So if you have this organization, which is a military organization, and also very powerful economically, I mean, you think about it, their influence was as great as any nation state in Europe at the time.
And therefore it was a threat.
Because the local monarch could not control them, which is Philip's problem.
That's right.
And they had their secrets, like any order like this. And they're not the only military order that comes up during the Crusades.
I'm glad we mentioned that.
There's the
Hospitallers are the ones.
Yes, the Hospitallers, and then there's the
Teutonic Knights.
Teutonic Knights, yes, that was the other one.
Which was more geographically oriented towards the north.
Yeah, north and east. Poland. What would become Poland and
they're
Baltic states.
Teutonic, they're Germanic. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there was they fought against the Poles and were essentially wiped out. That's a little bit later.
But also, you have to remember that after the first 100 years, basically, and really not even... The Christians do not hold Jerusalem for even that 100 years, but there are multiple crusades because Jerusalem keeps going back and forth. And after a while, they never take it back.
Right.
So their professed primary purpose doesn't go away, but they're less able to execute that as well.
Yes.
But by this time, of course, they're into other interests.
They're right. So it kind of goes along with that. Kind of lost their way a little bit. Because it's just the natural progression of things.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because it's very important for it's easier for Philip to do what he eventually does, knowing the fact that the reason the Templars were originally formed no longer exists.
It doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't matter. They have become something very different.
Yes, the Arabs, Muslims, starting with Saladin.
Yeah.
Essentially at the Battle of, how do you pronounce it? Hattin?
Hattin. The Horns of Hattin, yes.
The Battle of Hattin essentially breaks the Crusader kingdom.
Forever.
And it just, it ensures the fall of Jerusalem. And you mentioned Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah.
Great film. Not terribly historically accurate, and we discussed that during the Crusader episode. But
it's not bad though.
They play a role there. And I'll just mention one book I've recently read: Dan Jones, The Templars: The Rise and Spectacular Fall of God's Holy Warriors.
We love Dan Jones. Dan Jones is one of our favorite authors. He's written many books. War of the Roses he's done.
He's a medievalist.
That's exactly it. And his is kind of the most recent authoritative work on it, and it is absolutely accessible to the general reader.
Yes, it does read like a novel, but it's not a novel.
That's correct. And
it's not Dan Brown.
No, it's well researched. He's Dan Jones.
Yes, the first refutation would be Dan Brown's. Well, it's well researched for one thing.
Yes.
Dan Jones, not Dan Brown, just to make sure we get that all right here. But no, all of his books are so accessible. He's one of the rock star authors in history. accessible history today.
Yes.
Con Igelund does it. Your guy Tom Holland is great at it. There's many guys out there that do that. He's at the top.
A BBC presenter and
yes,
just involved in a ton of stuff in Britain.
If you get a chance to read any of his works, and oh gosh, would we love to have him as a guest?
Yes. Well, and Bernard Cornwell blurb on the very back.
Well, that's correct.
And he's a hero as well. So yes. Bernard Cornwell likes him. You got to read him. So Dan Jones, the Plantagenets, the Templars, War of the Roses.
There's many others. I don't have it in front of me. Yeah. I'd list his whole corpus.
Yeah, he's got a very sounds like a very narrow time frame he works in too, which makes him an expert of the time, which is great because one of the things I love about David McCullough is he's another guy that is very accessible. Although my son didn't care for 1776.
Real, I'm sorry for that.
He thought it was a little boring.
McCullough he's another one of those rock star authors.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done so many good works on so many folks.
He's kind of the American equivalent.
Exactly.
Rock star historian.
I still loved his Truman biography. Fantastic. I read it years ago, and it made that man so accessible. And that's a tribute to McCullough.
Yeah. So, those guys that concentrate in a particular era, they tend to be really good because they focus.
They know this stuff inside and out. Yeah. They weave it through multiple works.
Yeah, they can see where things are connected.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it fascinating. Awesome. And that's why that book is just, it's the one to go to.
Yeah. I love connected history.
Very much so.
When you're not thinking about something in this isolated manner, but you get this bigger sense of things that are going on over here.
It's
also
context.
Influence. Yeah, it influences things. The Crusades and the Templars are not isolated from the politics of Britain or France or the papal area.
And one of the good things about Dan Jones is he's not writing a fiction here. There are not fictional characters in this story, in this book. It's a narrative. So you can read it and understand it. It's fully Anatolian and all that stuff. But he's not stepping outside of that. And that's one of my criticisms of the TV series Nightfall, which is probably, if anybody has only a cursory understanding of the Templars, it's probably from that show, which was an excellent show. It was fun to watch. It was well produced, but it is far off the beaten path because it goes heavy into fictional characters. And not so much, although Philip the Fair is, he's one of the main characters in there. But that's about it. Landry, the main character, he's doesn't exist. So many of these others. All the business with Philip's wife, not so much. Things were different on that. Although some of it was right. It's kind of the shocking beauty of it every once in a while.
So, they start out, we're protecting the Pilgrims. And then it grows into this...
Because they were so good at it.
Yeah, the shock force that's building castles and attempting to hold and expand the Christian holdings in the Holy Land. And they are being granted lands and properties and income generating things back in Europe, Portugal, Spain. They're becoming involved with those kings back in France, Britain. So they're interweaving now into the politics of the continent. They're very powerful with banking and, again, generating and loaning money out. So then comes the fall. Mm-hmm. Again, the rug kind of gets pulled out from under them once the Holy Land is essentially lost again.
And you got one man to blame for this.
Oh, absolutely.
One man. One man with a vision, shall we say. And that's Philip the Fair. Philip the Fourth of France.
Yes. And again, it goes back to money. Mm-hmm. He's deeply indebted to the Templars because he needed the money to go to war against England. And he is dying to get out from under this debt. And, to be fair, by this time, because you're talking about 1305 is when the Pope starts trying to get the Hospitallers and the Templars to come together, and they're talking about actually a merger. And at this time, the Pope is based in Avignon.
Yes,
so he is under the thumb of Philip.
That's right.
That's
very important. That's right.
That's very important.
French Pope no longer residing in Rome.
Exactly. And he's still the Bishop of Rome, but doesn't set foot in Rome.
Yes. And so
because it's dangerous. There's a lot of reasons for this.
Yes.
Which that's another episode.
That's entirely
10 episodes when you start talking about papal politics in Rome there for a long stretch. But he's essentially under the protection of Philip, and Philip's stooge is probably a strong way to put it, but it's not too terribly far off.
No, it's not.
He's beholden to him.
He's very much... Yeah, stooge is probably a little too harsh, but he is definitely in secular matters or where the church can influence secular matters. He's going to do what Philip wants.
And at this time, secular matters and religious matters are very difficult to untwine.
Right. Absolutely. Because divine right, first of all, absolute rule. So you got to have the church's support to rule to begin with.
And most of your laws are attempts to essentially enforce religious aspects of life.
All laws are.
Well, yeah, because they're integrated. They're fully... See, that's what we as Americans in the 21st century do not understand.
Yeah, the basis of your law was theology.
Well, that's correct. And it's the merger of church and state as a seamless entity. We don't understand that. We don't.
Well, it's never been terribly seamless is the problem.
Well, and that's it. That's a lot of it, too.
Because even in the papal states, not exactly all that seamless.
Right, and you got 300-400 years here throughout Europe, really until Martin Luther, and even then it continues for a while after that until pieces break away. The separation of church and state, it's an oxymoron. You wouldn't consider
there
it.
Isn't any such
and in fact, even after the Protestant Revolution, it continues.
Rebellion.
Yeah, well, I was working the same thing. That's right. Well, I didn't say Reformation. I said Revolution.
Yeah. Well, I like rebellion.
Yeah. But even after that, in England in particular, it's the easiest example. Church and state are again identical. It's just a Protestant church.
Well, separation of church and state is really not something that comes about as a real issue until you get to the 18th and 19th centuries.
Well, thank you, Voltaire. And many others. That's where a lot of that comes out.
Honestly, Voltaire, I'm not going to say thank you, Voltaire, for too many times because I recognize his contributions, but he was an elitist pig, as so many of the Enlightenment guys were.
Yeah,
great intellectuals. But they were all a bunch of elitist pigs.
Very much so. Yeah, he was prick. We did our
we did our Voltaire and Enlightenment.
So Philip, he senses this weakness. He's got the Pope in his pocket. The Templars.
And there's rumors going around about secret practices and all these other things. Templars, mostly made up.
Mostly made up. So Philip seizes his moment. He amplifies these charges of heresy and depravity, and takes his moment to essentially seize all the Templars in France.
That's right.
Arrest them, and with the Pope's contrivance over several years of investigations and inquisitions, blah, 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 he breaks the Templars, and they essentially cease to exist.
Well, yeah, he burns the leaders at the stake.
Yeah.
Eventually, that's the big moment. It's very public. They do not recant, because they've done nothing wrong. History's pretty clear about that.
Well, and they're promised leniency if they confess.
Recant. Yeah.
So once they confess and then recant their confessions, because they see then it doesn't matter, they're going to get burned anyway.
Yeah.
So
it was
again. Dan Jones covers the fall just spectacularly well in this book. So, but the Templars are broken. The ones that are not arrested kind of
they
fade off into the sunset and flee. And no, they are not protecting the secret that the Holy Grail is really a family line of Christ and Mary Magdalene, or whatever it is that was made up for these novels. But,
yeah, that's right. Holy Blood, Holy Grail. All that. Yes,
But they are now purposeless. The ones that do escape punishment. I'm sure they did probably settle in places and try to live a religious life and hide the swords in the barn and that kind of thing.
One of the interesting things about the whole history, all of these lies persist. For many years, decades, centuries. Which, what are you going to do? I mean, it's when you finally get the order disbanded, they have no way to fight this.
Yeah, no way to fight back, no way to defend themselves.
So, but there is a record of the trial.
Oh yeah.
And it's misfiled in the secret archives. And, it's not like they use the Dewey Decimal System in the Vatican secret archives. They just add shelves and put stuff on it. And so somebody found the record, and the Pope actually absolved the entire order of all heresy before disbanding it. So basically the Pope said, look, we're going to have to disband you guys, but you're all innocent.
Right.
And, that's part of the official record. And this was just stumbled upon, not that long ago, in 2001.
Yeah.
So, it's just interesting how it's a great example of how the victors write history.
Yes. Yes.
It really is.
Philip wins the fight.
Yes.
And he gets what he wants.
Well, I mean,
he doesn't have to pay him back.
He's known as the Iron King in French history. He's one of, there are many large guys that...
This is still the Valois line.
Yes. Line of Valois. Yes.
Yes.
That's the one,
Yeah.
Although, ultimately, he dooms it. Or it is doomed after him. His three... and some say this was the Templars' revenge, because his three sons all reign after him and in short periods of times, and none of them have any issue. Because a lot of what starts all this is, and this is kind of trumped up charges of his three daughter-in-laws of adultery with the Templars. And those three sons of his, who were married, cuckolded by these supposedly, never have any issue. So there is a crisis of succession that comes just, not that many years later.
It's a kind of a way to see if he can get the three sons married to somebody else.
Well, that's
so they can try again on the kids.
That's exactly right. But the succession crisis...
Because it's always the woman's fault.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's what leads to the 100 Years' War. Because you don't have a clear line of succession here. There's a vulnerability here. You're marrying outside at this point.
And the line eventually marries into
the English
royal family. That's again, more for other times. Catherine of Valo and blah, blah, blah.
That's correct. So many would say that was the Templars' revenge. Because ultimately Philip, who was... he's got three adult sons. The line of succession seems secure. This is a strong king. I mean, you don't mess with this guy.
One of the few, really, really authoritative French kings.
That's correct. Yeah,
he really controls.
Played very
France.
very well in Nightfall by the actor Ed Stoppard, because he was a handsome guy. They called him Philip the Fair, but they also called him the Iron King. And he dies in a hunting accident a little early.
Really, Dick Cheney was hunting that early?
Dude, man.
Beat me to the joke.
Oh, I was going to say, dude, it's fantastic.
He slid it in there. I was waiting for Francis to take a breath, and he was hunting with Dick Cheney?
Okay.
Well done, Robert. Well done.
Fantastic, boys. Fantastic. But what I want to really...
And my work is done.
What I do want to make sure that we cover in here is that there's a 6-book fictional account by Maurice Durand. He's French, obviously. That is kind of the standard of all this stuff. The whole succession crisis that results, all the suppression of the Templars. It starts with the first book is The Iron King. It's a 6-book succession written in French, but it is now available in English translation. I've got it. It's called The Accursed Kings. That's the series. And you can find them on Amazon. They are an absolute blast. And they give you that context because it's within the fictional world, but it doesn't create fictional characters. These are the real people.
So kind of like a Jeff Shara novel.
Very much so. That's right. He's going deep into the minds of these individuals. And the first book, the first book ends with Philip's death. Mm-hmm. So it has all that stuff down and all that results after that. Because it's really the history of Europe for the next 300-400 years is started with Philip right here. Because things were not that bad. Actually, there was a...
And France is not a power, really, until him, essentially.
That's part of it.
You don't even really... the nobility is more powerful in France at this time than it even is in Britain.
Well, that's right, because France is also fractured at this point, because Brittany exists on its own. Normandy exists on its own. But that's changing by the time Philip comes along. Before you had your Dukes of Brittany, of all the rest of the stuff. They all supposedly had allegiance to the King of France, but it was kind of loosey-goosey. That's
kind of like in England.
Yeah, that's right. But now that's all changed. It's a solidified France where England doesn't have any continental possessions anymore, other than Calais.
Yeah.
So, which is just basically a toehold, for lack of
So that's France's emergence.
That's France's
as
emergence at a real
continental
world
power.
continental power.
Yeah.
And the fact that the papacy's in Avignon doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
No, it does not.
That's
well, there's a reason France is called the elder daughter of the church.
Yes, that's right. She hooked her star to the Catholic Church, and
Very early.
And this is the fruits of that.
Yes,
they're recognizing.
Really, we're talking even before 800 with the Holy Roman Empire.
That's right.
Because we forget the Holy Roman Empire. We think of as a German thing. Started as a Frankish.
That's right. It's Charlemagne. That's really where all this started, and this is kind of a bringing forward of that the greatness of that line. It's had a few twists and turns, but ultimately that's kind of where it's reunited back with the crown. That's where this ends up, and yet Philip, for all his intentions, and here's the great irony, because of what he does to the Templars, at least that's how the story goes, messes it all up. F's it all up.
I was going to say, you almost
dropped
it.
that F-bomb,
yes.
didn't I? But no, he almost does. And the consequential awfulness that happens, you can really lay at Philip's feet. He really made a big mistake here. Like Henry VIII did. He got greedy, and he saw that, these guys got a lot of stuff here.
Gee, did he have a chancellor named Thomas? Because that's usually where Henry's go wrong.
It was. He's a fascinating character, though. Fascinating character, and if you and the Templars themselves are filled with fascinating characters, but nobody. If you want to know what happened and you want to understand them, read up on Philip. He's worth it.
Well, that certainly takes care of the end of it. Bernard of Clairvaux and Hugh de Payens, the founders of the order, are fascinating characters in and of themselves.
Bernard. That's
right.
Saint
Saint Bernard of Clairvaux.
Bernard of Clairvaux was he wasn't in the order, but he supported it very strongly.
Right. He basically helped found it.
He was one of these guys who, at the time, was probably one of the most literate people in Europe.
Oh yeah,
and he was a rock star on the continent.
Yes.
Everybody knew him. He was seen as a holy man. He's written a lot of stuff.
Prolific
writer. Everybody turns to him, and this crosses national borders.
He's very persuasive.
He's respective. That's right. Yeah. Because he's able to bring peace in certain areas, and he's probably somebody that we could do a whole thing on because he's really very fascinating character. He's at the top. I mean, even the Pope defers to him in many ways because he's so well respected.
Yeah, and that's how they get started, basically on Bernard of Clairvaux's his endorsement. The Pope, okay, cool. I'll make him special.
Because if Bernie says it's okay, it's got to be good.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't help that these guys are French.
That's right.
And the Pope is French. And, the Franks are the ones who are the primary force behind the crusade that captures Jerusalem. So,
that's right.
It's very... So, again, the French are very much a big deal, even though it's not all of...
Yeah, and they are the drivers of the crusade.
And consequently, they build a lot of resentment then that carries through to much later. A lot of the wars of conquest during the Middle Ages on the continent and around, Shakespeare has a line in Henry V, something about the world's best garden that her neighbors look enviously at. It's calling France that.
Yeah. Yes. And was still true.
Yes.
Through the 20th century. Look how many times in the 19th century and the 20th century. Look how many times Germany went to war with France.
Right.
Granted, Germany goes to war with a lot of people in the 20th century, but France is a very desirable place to have.
Yeah, it is
throughout history.
It's supposedly one of the most beautiful countries in the world.
After the Templars are disbanded, a new order is created, not quite as a replacement, but it seems to have been offered as, all right, well, those guys are gone, but here's a new order. We want you guys to do, so presumably this one's going to be more under the control of those who got rid of the Templars.
Kindler and gentler.
Yeah, kindler and gentler, which is called the Order of Christ. And, it doesn't really go anywhere because it just, not like the Templars. And because they amassed such great wealth and influence. Yeah. And of course, all that, like Henry, when he took over all the monasteries and what have you in England, all that wealth goes away. So, that order it does not have the legs.
Right, yeah.
This was a drive to give these military men a purpose to keep them from going through the countryside and chopping everybody's head off.
Yeah.
How can we focus all of these armed people that we have to keep around in case there's a war on something other than plundering the countryside? And that's how these orders start to spring up.
Yes, and in many respects they're domesticated. The orders are, which is actually a fascinating prospect to take ultimately bloodthirsty savages, you could say.
Bullies and thugs.
Bullies and thugs is definitely a better word. And bring them to heel under the command of a civilizing force, both secular
which is what the church can be at its best.
Absolutely, and it very much was. And it uses, we will give you guys a holy purpose, and it worked. It really did work. Their only sin, as I said earlier, was that they were too damn good at what they did.
Yeah. So let's wrap this one up, guys. We won't take a bourbon break since we.
Oh my gosh, we didn't do a bourbon break.
We sort of did it at the beginning.
Well, yeah, it was a bourbon break. It was a night break
and a salute to PJ break.
Well, I'm sorry, but if we're going to talk about the Knights Templar and we're also going to talk about the Bellarmine Knights, I see this as perfect synergies, guys.
There you go.
There you go.
Very well done. Very, very well done. So, Francis, buddy, what is next time?
Code of Honor. We're going. And who knows where we're going to go? We never know where we're going to go on this. It's not a themed one. It's going to be whatever we decide to pull out of, whatever we want to pull it out of.
Yes.
Whichever orifice you want to pull it
I wasn't going to use the O word, but you're welcome to do so.
Well, your mouth is an orifice.
Okay, yes, I know.
Both ears.
Both ears. I'm not going there, boys. I'm not going there. All I can tell you is next episode, it's going to be great.
Hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes published every Friday at noon Eastern.
Spread the word. We're on all the major podcast platforms. And leave us a comment or review because that helps others find us.
We're on Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com.
I'm Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. Join us next week. Same snake time, same otter channel.